Here we go. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Big Idea. I am Dr. Jeffrey Hanna here with Clear Chiropractic, where we talk about the big idea, how it is that a little bone at the base of your head, where it meets your neck, can have a very big impact in terms of your health, well-being, and may be able to change your life. In this particular video, we're going to be having a look at a very commonly asked question in our practice. How is it that your neck can actually affect your vision? And we'll start with the general summary for everybody who just wants the cliff notes first. The nerves in your neck, they have a profound impact on the processing capacity of your brain. And in addition to that, those same nerves also influence blood vessel dilation, particularly to those key areas that are involved with coordinating vision, balance, and equilibrium. And what the research shows is that when you have a specific correction to the upper part of the neck, in effect, what can happen is that it is not so much increasing that processing power, but what it's simply doing is taking away some of the layers of stress so that your brain and thus your eyes are better able to process that information. And as a consequence, we're able to see less blurriness, greater clarity, and also greater clarity of thought. It's oftentimes said that the eyes are the window to the soul. Well, in this particular case, at the very least, the eyes are the window to your brain. They are an actual extension of your brain. Therefore, the more functional your eyes are, it's a reflection of better brain activity. And there are certain instances where the health and the alignment of your neck can have a profound impact on enhancing that normal vision, that normal balance, and also those normal brain functions. So let's get into it in this particular video. As we always do, if you've never seen the Big Idea videos before, we always tell you the story about what happens here. We go through life and we experience any number of physical injuries, slips, falls, sports accidents, car accidents, things like that. And in fact, as I'll be sharing a little bit later in this video, the problem can come from birth itself. When we have these physical injuries, it doesn't necessarily cause broken bones, dislocations, and maybe not even bleeding on the surface. But what can happen is you can have micro damage to the ligaments on the inside that normally support and maintain the mobility of your spine. And the upper part of your neck, the C1 and the C2 vertebrae, they are the proverbial weak links in the chain. That's how we're able to move our head with so much flexibility, but it also means that any injury, this is the area that is most likely going to be impacted. When that happens, characteristically, what we will see is we will see shifts in the normal alignment, motion, and ultimately stability of the joints in the neck. And in and of itself, the misalignment is not the problem. The problem is that these vertebrae anchor onto your brainstem, and they can start to produce tension. Now, if your brain is able to compensate for that issue and say, I don't really like this, what it will do is it will find intelligent ways to be able to compensate for that stress. Oftentimes, we'll see changes in a person's posture. A person's posture is an outer reflection of the inner reality. But like any compensation mechanism, it can only do so for so long before the muscles start getting sore, things start to fatigue, and depending on where you hold your stress, that's where you're most likely going to notice things start to break down, whether in your neck, your shoulders, your low back, but also the brain. And particularly as it relates to the brain, this can result in changes with circulation. This can be related to changes in brain function, clarity of thought, vision, balance, equilibrium. The list is potentially endless because ultimately the brain is what is controlling and coordinating every function in your body. And so many of these symptoms that people experience, they do not realize that this can be coming from this little area right here. What our focus then from an upper cervical chiropractic perspective is not simply twisting, cracking, popping. There is no twisting, cracking, popping. We do a very precise series of tests, series of measurements to find out the exact location, direction, degree of any misalignment that may be in the neck that can misalign in any number of 360 degrees. Once we know that, that's more like an unlocking of the joint. And if we are able to unlock that joint, what it means is that we're able to take the pressure off the ligaments. If you can take the pressure off of the ligaments, it means that that source of irritation that was affecting the brain-body communication is no longer there. And as a consequence, the body is able to do what it is designed to do. That is heal itself. So in this way, we are not treating any particular symptom. We simply know that when you can restore the normal function of brain-body communication, that anything in life is possible. Healing is possible, and that there is hope. Alrighty, so let's have a brief look at some neurology about how this is possible. Because we think of the eyes being toward the front of your head, the front of your brain, which they are. But I want to illustrate for you that the processing centers that receive that information from your eyes are actually located in your brainstem and toward the back part of your skull, which is directly in the firing line if and when there's ever one of these upper neck misalignments. I will draw your attention first and foremost on this particular little diagram. If you look at the very top, we have those little annotations, the N1 and the N2. These are what are known as the superior and the inferior colliculi. These are processing centers in your upper brainstem that are responsible for coordinating visual and also hearing information. You can appreciate, like if you have a radio where there is static that is not supposed to be there, that it's not quite as finely tuned. Well, your eyes can be transmitting the exact right kind of information, but if you have a problem at the processing center of that information, it's not going to be coming out near as clear as it otherwise should be. And even though this particular cluster of nerves is located high up in the brainstem, we know from the research that when you have a neck injury, a whiplash injury that creates tension through those ligaments, it can transmit that tension 2 inches down into the middle part of your neck, but it can also transmit that tension 2 inches upward into the brainstem. In other words, this area is still subject to that same amount of mechanical tension. And we know also that if you have tension on a nerve, it only takes about 15 minutes for its normal processing and stress capacity to go down by about 50%. Now, that does not mean that all of the systems of your brain are going to start to work abnormally. But what it does mean is that your brain is going to have to find ways of compensating, and anything that's going to reduce that normal capacity, like a computer that's running too many programs all at once, or if you have a computer that's got a little bit of malware, it should be operating at 100%, but now it's down to 98%. That 2% disruption will start to accumulate over a period of time, and it can show up in very atypical ways, not always pain. It's also very much a matter of circulation. What we have illustrated for you here is what's known as the vertebro-basilar system. These are a pair of arteries that supply blood through the vertebra in your neck and give about a total of a third to all of the blood that's inside of your brain. But you'll notice on this diagram here that even though these arteries only supply a third of the blood to the brain, they are effectively 100% of supply to all of the centers of your brainstem, which includes that superior and inferior colliculus, but it also includes all the blood flow that goes to the part of your brain in the very back, which is known as the cerebellum. The cerebellum is the master fine-tuning and fine motor coordination system. And this is what we believe oftentimes if you have a disruption of this system, which accounts for a huge amount of the processing capacity of the brain, that this can show up in muscle incoordinations, including the muscles that also are involved with moving your eyes. Oh, but wait, there's more. You'll also notice that we have this artery that goes toward the back. This is known as the posterior cerebral artery. On the diagram here, we have it listed as number, that's a little small for me, number 28. There we go. This is going to go to what's known as your occipital lobe. The occipital lobe is the primary processing center for that information that comes from your eyes. So yes, we do have that superior colliculus that receives a lot of the fine-tuning information, but the primary processing center for your eyes is actually toward the back of your skull. And if then you have disruption of blood flow to this critical area, even if your eyes themselves are not being affected, it can still very much affect the way that that information is interpreted and processed. And last but certainly not least, for all of our neuro geeks out there, we also have what's known as the superior cervical ganglion. This is a pair of nerves that transmit up along the front of your neck and enter into your skull. And they control and coordinate every single blood vessel, every simple lymphatic channel inside of your brain. So those arteries that I just shown you, but also every single artery and also every single vein for that matter, that also influences and controls your eyes, your prefrontal cortex, your motor cortex, your sensory cortex. Every single one of those is influenced by these particular nerves. And these nerves are found directly in front of the C1, the C2, and the C3 vertebrae in your neck. And it's believed that under certain circumstances, if you ever have not compression, but tension of these nerves, it's going to be sending abnormal signals to those same nerves, those same blood vessels in your brain, which should normally be coordinating blood vessel dilation. And if then they start to spasm, it means that the processing centers of your brain are not receiving the right amount of blood flow. And as a consequence, whatever is in that firing line, whatever is being affected, will not be able to work near as well. And we believe that this is commonly associated for people, again, who've experienced any form of whiplash injury. It doesn't have to be necessarily a car accident. Anything where the head snaps forward and back, back to front, or side to side. Even if you don't land directly on your head. If you have a fall, you land on your tailbone, you land on your shoulder, and it produces this whip effect, that can stress and strain these particular nerves, and it can also stretch and strain the brainstem itself. And when you have altered circulation, it can affect your balance, it can affect your vision, and we can diagnose it as any number of different possibilities, whether a whiplash-associated disorder, we could call it traumatic brain injury, we could call it brain fog syndrome, we can call it chronic fatigue. If it manifests in physical pain, we can call it fibromyalgia. It could show up in a number of different, very complex symptoms involving altered balance, vertigo, headaches, migraine. The list goes on and on and on. Those are the far-reaching effects when you have these little problems that are affecting the alignment, the motion stability of the joints in your neck that in turn are affecting your brain circulation, the nerve supply to those centers of the brain, and also how well those centers are able to function and process the normal information that they receive. Now, personally, I've seen this a number of times in clinical practice where people receive a specific adjustment and they say, you know, doc, this sounds a little weird, but I think that I can see a little bit clearer what's going on. All right, well, first up, I will say that once is an accident, twice is a coincidence, three times is a pattern. So I am never, ever going to assign immediate value. If a person says, I feel better, don't misunderstand me. That's a wonderful thing. But I always want to make sure that I am not drawing unwarranted conclusions. I do remember a few people where they would say, I'm seeing like sparkles and everything just seems brighter. I had another lady I had taken care of. She said that when she received the best adjustment that cleared her brain, it was weird because she would, quote unquote, see purple. And this was not a bad or a pathological kind of thing. These were subtleties that people noticed in terms of how their brains processed information that was associated with the positive release. Now, can I tell you, why did a person say that they saw sparkles? Why did a person say that they were seeing purple? I couldn't begin to tell you that. Nevertheless, I want to illustrate that these subtleties are oftentimes very positive clues that there's been a change affecting the eyes, or more appropriately, the brain, and its ability to process visual information. And there are plenty of case studies out there. Here was a general research review that was done back in 2016. And they're coming from it from a perspective of, well, we're not so sure about this, but we're going to do a pilot study, a single cohort prospective trial on the immediate effects of spinal manipulation on visual acuity. What they did were a series of neck adjustments. Before that, they measured a person using a standard eye chart, so the Snellen eye chart, where it's the big E at the top, and they looked to see how easily can they read the different letters. And they said, well, there's no high-quality evidence on which to judge the generalizability of isolated reports of improvement in vision following manipulation, and that's a true statement. I oftentimes say that there's a big difference between possible, plausible, and probable. So possible is simply what I've already shown you with the neurology. Can a problem in the neck be affecting? Is it possible that this is happening because we understand the neuroanatomy? Well, yes, it is. Plausible means that there are cases where this has actually happened. Now, probable, that's what we honestly don't know. We don't know, is it that if a person is having visual disruptions, balance disruptions, that if you're able to correct misalignments of the upper neck, do 50% of all those people report better vision? Do 5% of those people report better vision? We honestly don't know that. So that is an absolutely true statement. And that's where these researchers were coming from. They're saying, well, we don't know, but let's go ahead and we're going to design a research protocol. And this was a relatively small study. Nevertheless, they remarked that they were very surprised with the result. They concluded, by some measures, chiropractic treatment was accompanied by statistically significant improvements in visual acuity. They tested the left eye, they tested the right eye, and then they tested both eyes together to see were there changes with how well a person was able to read the Snellen eye chart. And as far as why do they propose that these changes could have even occurred in the first place, they are hypothesizing that you had changes with brain function, you had improvements with circulation, and that's what we're able to account for these differences. Now, wait a minute here, Jeff, wait a minute. What do they mean by some measures? Well, in this article, they go to the point of talking about how, well, if you're just looking at the two eyes together, and that's what a large amount of the general case reports are, they say, yep, we were able to read the eye chart better using both eyes. And what their research showed is that, well, you can't always take that into account just by doing it that way, and it's because the left eye and the right eye may actually be giving different information. And they cited a couple of studies that had been done previously where they were just looking at the straight eye chart, and they said, well, based on our research, we were finding that there were improvements that were occurring with the right eye, but not with the left. In other words, it's not always so linear. Which led to a follow-up study the next year by a couple of those authors who were actually cited. And they said, okay, yep, point well taken. So let's repeat one of our research articles, or one of our research studies. What they did was they went back and they redid this Snellen eye chart, and they checked after an upper neck adjustment, was there a change in the left eye? Was there a change in the right eye? Was there a change in both? And what they found, and we don't know why this would have been the case, but no real changes in visual acuity with the left eye. But with the right eye, no matter which combination of upper neck adjustment was actually required, there were statistically significant improvements. And those improvements were able to manifest and being able to read that eye chart with greater clarity. And they did find that the older that a person was and the more likely that they were to experience degenerative conditions of the eye, those effects were less significant. Nevertheless, they did still occur. So the preliminary pilot study was done and said, wow, there really are changes with visual acuity after an upper neck adjustment. And then it was repeated in a similar manner, and they found essentially the exact same thing. Now, I also want to share with everybody a bit of a personal story so that you know that this is not simply academic, that what we're talking about is real. And what I'm going to talk about is me. So a couple things that you should probably know about me. Number one is I was born with forceps. So I had a neck injury from day dot. And I consider myself very fortunate that I grew up in a chiropractic family, that whenever I would get a headache, whenever I would be feeling sick, I would be able to basically have my dad adjust me, and weird, I started feeling an awful lot better. And I went through the first 30 years of my life where essentially dad was able to fix me no matter what. Then, of course, as I grew up, as I moved away and didn't have access to all of that, that was where a lot of issues started to creep into my body. Now, a lot of people, they believe that those kinds of issues are the result of just more stress, just getting older, that there's nothing that you can do about it, that this is normal, the progression of getting older. I didn't. I personally believe that there was something that was going on in my own neck that I just simply was not able to get corrected. And lucky me, because I had a few additional compounding injuries, it was resulting in dizziness, it was resulting in minor vertigo, but headaches, migraines, essentially every single day. It's not a very fun thing, so I understand that firsthand. And one of the things that I also noticed relatively early on in this was that my eyes were getting progressively blurrier, to the point where I started to wear glasses. And I had the eyes checked, and what I discovered, or more appropriately what the optometrist discovered, was that my left eye, pretty good, but my right eye has an astigmatism. What's an astigmatism? An astigmatism means that the shape of the cornea, that is the lens that is receiving the light, has a slight turn to it. In other words, when light comes in through my eyes, it's going to be processed in a slightly different manner. Now, why is this important? It's important first and foremost because that's not just something that happens when a person turns 30 years old. That's something that had always been there all of my life. Point being is that prior to this period, when I was under regular care and everything was going relatively well, my brain was essentially able to say, okay, yes, we have the processing power, we've got the resources. Yes, there's this astigmatism, and yes, it means that your right eye is not near as good as your left eye. In fact, to this day, if I do this, literally as I'm talking to you, I can cover this eye and I can see clear as. If I do this, everything is super blurry. But my brain had the processing capacity to be able to say, you know what, we can accommodate that. You're just going to be left eye dominant. We're going to receive more information there. And then this one, we just know that we can disregard that a little bit more. So the astigmatism had always been there. Nevertheless, as things continued to get worse and worse and worse and worse with the headaches, the migraines, the balance and all that, I was finding my brain, I just not able to compensate for this anymore, and glasses were about the only thing that were able to help, so that I was not getting an instantaneous headache a second that I was reading anything. And in fact, if you go back and watch some of my older videos, you will see that I am wearing glasses. Now, when I had moved back to the States here and started to be able to get more of the specific kind of adjustments that I needed, and I will tell you this, it's very, very frustrating when you as a chiropractor, you're able to do this for other people and you see great results for them, and very frustrating when you're not getting it yourself. And a chiropractor cannot adjust themselves either. Yeah, somebody can twist and crack your neck, but that is not the same kind of thing. And that will oftentimes not correct what the underlying issue is. Nevertheless, I'm still wearing the glasses, but I'm starting to get improvements with balance, with headaches, all of that essential stuff. So it was going good. Now, one particular day when I was going into the clinic, I forgot my glasses at home, and I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be a rough day. But by the end of the day, I realized that despite having a challenge that I hadn't been able to, something I had not been able to do for years, I was not completely wrecked. Okay, this is interesting. So I started to notice I didn't need to wear my glasses near as often. And touch wood, and as you can see right now, I'm not wearing them right now. I do notice very much that when my neck goes back out of alignment, that yes, my vision starts getting almost instantly blurry. But when it's back in, I can see clearer. So this particular video, again, this is not just an academic exercise. I will tell you firsthand that I notice a profound difference with my own vision when my neck is in alignment versus out of alignment. And again, I have an astigmatism with that right eye. That astigmatism has never gone away. I repeat, if I do this, everything goes super blurry. And this goes to what is the point and the purpose of an upper cervical or an upper neck adjustment. It doesn't necessarily mean that it fixes all ailments in the body or that it makes all problems go away. What it means is it means that it is restoring your brain's normal functional capacity to be able to adapt and to be able to process the information that it receives. So my neck goes out, brain says, sorry dude, we can't handle this, psh, everything starts going funny. Adjustment goes in, there's the clarity, thank you. That frees up the normal resources, and amongst many things, not only do the headaches settle, not only does the brain start working clearer, not only does the balance improve, but also the eyes improve to a degree where I am not dependent on glasses, at least at this particular moment in time. And I very much appreciate that. Of all of the things that I was hoping were going to improve by being able to receive more consistent care in this particular way, that was one very unexpected and very pleasant surprise. So, I repeat, I can testify personally, not just professionally, but personally, that the proper alignment, the motion, the stability of the joints in your upper neck, they absolutely have an impact on vision. And it's not just a matter of having the right glasses, the right kinds of eye checks, that's essential. But if a person is noticing blurry vision, and especially if they're experiencing other symptoms consistent with brain-body discommunication, headaches, migraine, balance, brain clarity. Now, if you've had a neck whiplash, head injury of some kind, I would absolutely advocate and make sure that you are getting your neck properly assessed, because that can be one of those key ingredients to make sure that everything is healing and working as well as possible. And there we go, another episode of The Big Idea. Thank you guys very much for watching this. If you have enjoyed it, I ask 4 things of you then. Number 1, please do click that like and subscribe button. Number 2, if you've got a friend or family member who you think would benefit from watching this video, please do share this link with them. Number 3, if you want more information or if you want to reach out to me personally, go to my website, which is drjeffreyhanna.com. We have links to all kinds of other articles that talk about how neck alignment affects brain-body health and communication. And last but certainly not least is if we've struck a chord with you, something resonates, and you want to know how we can help you personally, you can reach out to us at our practice. We're part of the team at ClearChiroSpokane.com, and you can call us at 509-315-8166. We'll be happy to coordinate a time to have a chat with you, let you know what the general process is, and do the very best that we can to help you live the life that you were born to live. Thanks again for watching this. This is Dr. Jeffrey Hanna at Clear Chiropractic Spokane. Get well, live well, and stay well. Till next time, take care, and bye-bye.